This is a story of Armin and Meher, the perfect couple, or at least that's what it looked like from the outside. Armin was everything a woman could ask for: calm, stable, successful, an architect by profession, reserved by nature, with eyes that held both ambition and kindness. Meher was elegance itself, graceful in every gesture, soft-spoken, always polite, and always smiling. That smile, it wasn't ordinary. It was a kind of smile that made you feel safe, the kind that made you believe everything was all right. Together, they seemed like a storybook romance come to life, the kind of couple people pointed to and said, now that's what real love looks like. They'd been married for 5 years, and in those 5 years, they built a life that others admired. Their house was warm, filled with light and laughter. Their social media, a gallery of love. Sunset selfies, candlelit dinners, captions like, 5 years of forever. My safe place in this crazy world. People envied them. Friends wanted what they had. Armin would often say to her, I don't know what I did to deserve you. And Meher, she would simply smile, that same soft, almost mysterious smile, and say, maybe you were just meant to have peace. Armin believed her. Why wouldn't he? They had rituals, little things that kept their bond alive. Friday night movies at home, Sunday morning walks with coffee, random midweek surprises, a favorite pastry, a handwritten note. From the outside, no cracks, no noise, no chaos, just love. But love can wear masks too, and perfection can be the best place to hide the truth. Over time, Armin started to feel something small, something quiet, a strange sort of distance, not in words, not in actions, but in the spaces in between. Sometimes, Meher would zone out, stare at nothing, lost in thought. He'd ask, everything okay? She'd look at him, smile, and say, of course. That smile again, always that smile. It comforted him, and yet it unsettled him. Then came the little moments, the ones that didn't mean much, until they did. She'd take phone calls in another room. She started locking her phone. She'd leave for errands and return hours later with vague explanations. Ran into an old friend. She'd say casually, time just slipped. She never fumbled, never got defensive. She just smiled, always in control, always calm. Armin began questioning himself. Am I imagining things? Am I being paranoid? She hadn't given him a reason to doubt her. But sometimes, doubt doesn't need a reason, just a pattern. One night, as they sat on the balcony, sipping tea in silence, he said, do you ever feel like we're drifting? She looked at him, held his gaze, and smiled. Don't be silly, she whispered. You're my home. And that was it. No deeper conversation. Just another layer of calm added to the storm that was building in Armin's heart. To the world, they were still the golden couple. At a family function, an aunt said, watching you two gives me hope and love again. Armin smiled politely, but inside, he felt like a fraud. There was a quiet war inside him, one part convinced he was overthinking, and the other part certain that something was terribly wrong. He noticed that Meher never talked about her. She asked about his day, his projects, his stress, but she never shared hers. Not truly. There were no bad days, no arguments, no vulnerability. Just perfection. Too perfect. And in that perfection, Armin began to feel like a stranger, like he was watching a movie of his own life, beautifully edited, lovingly scored, but somehow fake. And yet, he said nothing. Because what do you say when you're in love with someone who never gives you a reason to stop trusting them, but somehow you don't trust them anymore? What do you ask when you're afraid of the answer? Narrator, pause, softer voice. Armin didn't know it yet, but the smile he loved so deeply, the smile that once brought him peace, was hiding something, something cold, something calculated, something that would eventually destroy everything they had built together. There's something haunting about a smile that never changes. Not the happy kind, not the kind that lights up a moment, but the kind that stays no matter what. Meher's smile had become her identity. At dinner tables, when friends laughed, she smiled. At funerals, when others wept, she still smiled. When Armand failed to close a deal, when he came home exhausted, frustrated, she smiled. Not with mockery, not even with indifference, just peacefully, like nothing could shake her. People called it grace, composure, strength. But Armand, he had started to wonder if it was something else entirely. There was a night he remembered vividly. They were lying in bed. He was on his back, staring at the ceiling, burdened by work stress, a sick parent, a growing sense of unease. He turned to her and said quietly, "Do you ever feel lost?" Meher turned toward him. Her eyes were soft, unreadable. And then there it was again, that smile, gentle, reassuring, empty. "No," she said, "because I have you." He wanted to believe her, but her voice didn't tremble. Her eyes didn't flicker. She didn't ask why he felt lost. She just closed her eyes and went to sleep. Over time, Armand started testing that smile. He'd come home late without notice. She smiled. He'd mentioned made-up female co-workers just to see a reaction. She smiled. He even once lied about quitting his job, just to watch her expression. She didn't flinch. She didn't question. She smiled, and that terrified him more than any argument ever could. Smiles, he thought, were supposed to reflect emotion. Joy, affection, nervousness, surprise. But Meher's didn't. It was constant, like a mask glued to her skin. He began noticing how her reactions were rehearsed. Someone complimented her dress. Smile. Someone asked about their marriage. Smile. Someone shared bad news. Slightly sad smile. But never tears. Never rawness. Never anything real. One afternoon, Armand came home early. He walked in quietly. No sounds. No warning. Meher was in the kitchen, phone pressed between shoulder and ear. Her back was turned, but her tone wasn't the sweet, calm one he knew. It was sharp, almost cold. She said, "No, I told you not to call me at this time. I don't care what he thinks." Then she noticed him. She turned, and just like that, the mask returned. Smile, sweet, soft, perfect. "Oh, you're home early," she said, as if nothing had happened. Armand didn't say a word. He just stayed, trying to see past it. But the smile never faded. At a friend's wedding a few nights later, people kept complimenting them. "You too give us hope. You're the calmest couple we've ever seen. You're so lucky, Armand. She's always so composed." He smiled back, but his eyes searched Meher's face. She smiled, as always. But that night, Armand watched closely. When everyone danced, she smiled. When someone cracked a dirty joke, she smiled. When she thought no one was looking, she stood alone near the balcony, still smiling, staring into the dark, not blinking, not breathing heavily, just smiling, like a statue that forgot how to be human. Later that night, when they returned home, Armand sat on the edge of the bed. He asked one question. "Do you ever cry?" Meher sat beside him, touched his shoulder, and smiled. "I don't need to," she said. "I've made peace with life." But peace didn't look like that. Not that still. Not that distant. It looked like hiding. Armand once believed her smile was strength. Now, he saw it as something else. A shield. A perfectly crafted armor to keep people away. A wall, not to protect herself, but to trap him. Because how do you fight something that never fights back? How do you question someone who never breaks? Every time he wanted to scream, she smiled. Every time he grew suspicious, she smiled. Every time he craved closeness, she smiled. And he slowly stopped asking, because a smile won every time. People think betrayal begins with lies, but sometimes it begins with silence, with control, with a smile that refuses to fade, no matter how much pain is hiding behind it. Or worse, no matter how much pain it's causing. Narrator, slow, fading voice. Armand didn't realize it then. But Meher's smile wasn't about love. It was about control, and the truth buried behind it would soon rip his world apart. Perfection never falls apart all at once. It starts with small cracks, barely visible, barely audible. But once you see them, you can't unsee them. And once you hear the silence behind the smiles, you can't unhear it. This is where it began, the unraveling of what Armin thought was his perfect life. It started with a phone call, not the one he received, but the one Meher didn't want him to hear. He had come home early, again. The house was quiet, too quiet. He walked in, footsteps soft, and from the hallway, he heard her, Meher, in the study, speaking fast, low, and sharp. "No, don't call me at this time." He could walk in any minute. A pause. "I told you, I'll handle it. Just stop being careless." Armin froze. Before he could process anything, the tone of her voice flipped. She laughed lightly, a fake, forced chuckle, and then silence. She stepped out moments later. "Oh, you're home," she said with that familiar smile. Too familiar. Armin nodded. He didn't say anything, but something inside him shifted. The next morning, Meher was humming while cooking breakfast. The same woman who had been whispering in secret last night was now singing. She placed his plate on the table, kissed him on the forehead. He smiled back, but inside, questions were screaming. Who was she talking to? What was she handling? And why was she hiding it from him? Over the next few days, Armin began to observe her more closely. Her patterns, her words, her absences. She used to tell him everything, even small things like who she bumped into at the grocery store. Now, vague answers. "Where were you?" "Oh, just out. Needed some air." "With who?" "No one, just me." But her perfume lingered longer than usual. And once, he noticed she changed clothes before coming home, when she didn't need to. She started getting more phone calls, mostly in the evening, often during dinner. If he was near, she'd silence her phone. When he asked who it was, she'd shrug. "Spam. These telemarketers are getting annoying." He wanted to believe her. He really did. But even the tone of her shrug felt calculated. Then came the most telling clue. One night, Armin woke up around 3 a.m., thirsty, restless. As he passed by the living room, he noticed a faint glow. Her phone screen, unlocked, lying face up. She was asleep on the couch. Something she never did. He picked up the phone. The screen displayed a message. "Miss you already. Can't wait for next time. Red heart hash. No name. Just a number." His chest tightened. His fingers shook. He placed the phone down, quietly walked back to the bedroom, and sat in the dark. The next morning, Meher acted normal, as if nothing happened. She laughed at his jokes, made his favorite breakfast, talked about her plan for the day. But all Armin could see was that message, that red heart, that unfamiliar number. He didn't confront her. Not yet, because now he wanted to know. He wanted proof. He wanted the truth she had been hiding behind that never-fading smile. The following week, he paid attention like never before. He noticed how she avoided eye contact whenever she lied, how she overcompensated with affection when she returned home late, how she started planning things alone, lunches, events, even weekends. Once, she said she was meeting an old college friend. He asked, "Which one?" She hesitated, just for a second, then smiled. "You don't know her." It was a small slip, but that 1 second confirmed everything. The illusion of their perfect life had begun to crack. And when perfection starts to fall apart, it doesn't make noise. It whispers. It peels quietly, like old wallpaper, until the wall behind it is finally exposed, ugly, broken, and real. Armin wasn't angry. Not yet. He was hurt, confused, scared of how deep the lie went, scared that he might have never known the woman he'd shared his life with, scared that the love he gave so freely had been wasted. One night, as they lay in bed, Armin turned to her and asked, "Do you still love me?" She looked at him and smiled. "Of course I do," she whispered, but her eyes didn't shine. Her hands didn't reach for his, and her smile looked more like a shield than a promise. Narrator, slow, ominous tone. The truth had started to bleed through the cracks, and Armin knew something was coming, something that would break everything. The only question now was, how long could she keep pretending? And how much longer could he stay silent? Sometimes it's not the scream that wakes you up. It's the whisper, the one that slips between the cracks in your life, settles in your mind, and refuses to leave. That's what happened to Armin. He wasn't ready for the truth, but the truth was ready for him. It was a quiet Sunday afternoon, one of those peaceful, lazy days where the world slows down, or at least pretends to. Meher was out, said she was visiting her aunt. Alone, as usual. Armin wasn't surprised. Lately, she had more solo plans than shared ones. So when his old college friend Zara called and asked to catch up over coffee, he said yes without thinking. It felt good to say yes to something simple, something normal. But what Zara said that day would change everything. They met at a small cafe near Armin's office. She smiled when she saw him, warm, genuine, untouched by the kind of tension that now lived in Armin's home. They talked about work, old memories, funny professors, the kind of surface-level conversation that gives comfort when you're not ready to dig deep. But then, as the conversation slowed, Zara leaned in slightly, lowered her voice, and said the words that would echo in Armin's mind for weeks. "I don't mean to intrude, but are you okay?" He blinked. "What do you mean?" She looked hesitant, careful. "I mean, with Meher, you two always look perfect. But I don't know. Something feels off." Armin forced a smile. "We're fine. Why would you think otherwise?" Zara hesitated. "I saw her 2 weeks ago at the art gallery downtown." "That's not unusual. She loves art," he replied casually. Zara nodded. "True, but she wasn't alone." Armin's hand stiffened around his coffee cup. "Who was she with?" Zara took a breath. "I didn't get a clear look, but it wasn't you. And it didn't look like just a friendly outing." She paused, watching his face. "I wasn't going to say anything. It's none of my business. But Armin, you look tired, like something's been eating at you. And I just thought, maybe it's time to stop pretending everything's perfect." That last sentence, "maybe it's time to stop pretending," it struck him harder than he expected. He didn't respond, just nodded slowly and changed the subject. But the damage was done. The whisper had landed, and it was louder than anything Meher had ever said. That night, Meher came home with a smile. "As always, I brought your favorite dessert," she said sweetly, placing a small box on the kitchen counter. He looked at her, really looked. That perfect face, that calm voice, that flawless smile. But now, it all felt choreographed. She noticed his silence. "You okay?" He nodded. "Yeah, just tired." She stepped closer, touched his cheek. "You work too hard, Armin." He stared into her eyes. "Do you? Do you care? Or is this part of the act too?" He didn't say it. Not yet. But something inside him had shifted. Over the next few days, the image of her at the gallery haunted him. Who was she with? Why lie about it? She never even mentioned going. Was that the only time? Or had there been others? He wanted to check her phone, to track her, to ask questions. But he didn't, because somewhere deep down, he was still hoping he was wrong, still praying that Zara had misunderstood, still clinging to the version of Meher he had fallen in love with. But the seed was planted, and seeds don't stay buried forever. They grow silently, steadily, until they break through the surface and demand to be seen. One evening, as they sat together watching TV, he asked, "Do you ever miss your old friends? The ones from before we got married?" She smiled. "Not really. Life's changed. People move on." He nodded. "Did you go to any galleries recently?" A flicker, barely a second, passed across her eyes. Then the smile again. "Maybe. I walk by one sometimes." "Why?" He looked away. No reason. But his mind screamed, liar. And worse than the lie was the ease with which she told it. Zara's words came back, again and again. "You look tired. Maybe it's time to stop pretending." Armin was tired. Tired of pretending. Tired of smiling back at a woman whose own smile never cracked. Tired of loving someone who maybe never loved him the same way. Narrator, soft, heavy voice. That day, Armin learned something important. Truth doesn't always walk in with a bang. Sometimes it sneaks in with a whisper, one person, one sentence, one moment, enough to make you question everything you thought you knew. Betrayal doesn't always kick down the door. Sometimes it slips in through something small. A single notification, a forgotten device, a password she thought he wouldn't remember. That's how it all started. The moment Armin stopped guessing and finally knew. It was a Wednesday morning. Meher had left in a hurry, said she had a meeting, no time for breakfast. She kissed him on the cheek, smiled as always, and walked out the door like every other day. But this day, something stayed behind. Her old iPad, the one she hadn't used in months, the one she used to read on years ago. It was left on the living room shelf, half covered with a scarf. Armin wasn't looking for anything. At least, that's what he told himself. But something, call it instinct or suspicion, or the whisper from Zara still echoing in his ears, made him pick it up. The device was locked. Of course. But Meher wasn't careless. She was methodical, which is why it shocked him when he entered her old birthday and it unlocked. For a moment, Armin just sat there, staring at the screen. He wasn't sure what he was even looking for. Maybe to prove himself wrong. But what he found broke him. Inside the device were 2 email apps. One of them, one he'd never seen her use, was still logged in. There, buried under folders named Receipts, Notes, and Reminders, was a truth. Dozens of messages. Sent, received, ongoing, from a name he didn't recognize. The subject lines weren't subtle. Can't wait to see you again. Delete this after reading. He suspects nothing. Armin's hand trembled as he opened one. Last night was perfect. You always make me feel more alive than I ever did with him. Let's meet again soon. Same place. He read it again, and again, as if the words would change. They didn't. The messages dated back months. Coordinated meetups. Code names. Conversations that mocked him. Describing lies told. Times he was away. How easily she could pretend. One thread chilled him the most. It wasn't about intimacy. It was about money. Shared bank transfers. Secret accounts. A conversation about moving somewhere new. Starting over. Without him, he found screenshots too. Photos of places she said she'd never been to. Receipts for hotels booked under fake names. Even pictures of her with him, the man from the emails. No filters. No masks. Just Meher. But it wasn't the version Armin knew. This Meher was free, loose, laughing. Not smiling politely like she did at home, but laughing from her gut, as if she only truly existed when he wasn't around. Armin didn't cry. Not immediately. He closed the iPad, set it down like it was made of glass, and just sat there. 4 hours. He remembered the first time they met. How nervous she'd been. How her eyes sparkled when she spoke about loyalty, trust, forever. He remembered their vows. The first night in their new apartment. The tiny joys, the big celebrations, all of it. He thought he had built a life. But what he had built, she had slowly, carefully, started tearing down, one lie at a time. When Meher returned home later that evening, she was humming. That same unbothered smile. That same warmth in her voice. "Hey," she said, "you're home early." He looked up, just for a second. Their eyes met. He wondered if she could tell, if she could feel the shift. But she didn't flinch. She smiled. "Everything okay?" she asked. He smiled back, the same way she always had. "Yeah," he said. "Everything's perfect." Narrator, cold, slow voice. But inside, nothing was perfect anymore. Inside, something had cracked beyond repair. It wasn't just about cheating. It wasn't even about the lies. It was about the performance, the way she played her role, the way she stood in front of him day after day, smiling, loving, pretending, while hiding an entire life he was never meant to see. He spent that night sitting on the floor, lights off, her iPad in his lap, reading every message. Not because he didn't believe them, but because some part of him still needed to feel the betrayal. Over and over, until the pain became familiar. People say the truth sets you free. But sometimes, it breaks you into so many pieces. You don't know which part to gather first. A lie can be forgiven. A mistake can be mended. But a double life? That isn't a slip of judgment. That is a choice. And Armin was about to discover that Meher had been making choices for a very long time. Ones that never included him. After the emails, Armin couldn't sleep. He didn't eat. Didn't speak. Didn't confront her. Not yet. He just watched. And waited. The truth wasn't just in what she hid. It was in the life she carefully separated from him. A life she'd been living right under his nose. The next morning, he called in sick. Meher left for her so-called yoga class. Once she was gone, Armin began to search. Not just emotionally, physically. Drawers, files, devices. For years, he had respected her privacy, trusted her. But now he realized trust had been her cover, and she had used it well. In the back of her wardrobe, inside an old travel bag, he found something strange. A second phone, turned off, no case, no charger nearby. Just there. He stared at it for a long moment. When he turned it on, it asked for a PIN. He tried her birth date. No luck. He tried his. Still nothing. Then he tried the date of their wedding anniversary. Unlocked. Even her passcode were a performance. The phone was a gallery of secrets. Messages from numbers he didn't recognize. Not just one man, but multiple names. Some short conversations. Some deep, emotional exchanges. Others that were strictly financial. Then there were banking apps. Not the ones linked to their shared accounts. New ones. Hidden ones. With large sums moved in and out. But that wasn't the worst of it. The worst came in a file folder, labeled plainly, leverage. Inside, photos of contracts, screenshots of private messages, some his, private emails he had sent to colleagues, recordings of conversations they had inside their home, documents he had signed, scanned without his knowledge. She wasn't just cheating. She was collecting, preparing, planning something. This wasn't about passion. This wasn't just about love. This was a setup. It wasn't until he found a recorded voice memo titled, "Just in Case," that it hit him fully. He played it. Meher's voice filled the room. If anything ever happens, this is a record. Armin's not who he pretends to be. He's emotionally unstable. I've documented everything. I'll release it if needed. A pause. Then her voice, calm and smiling. Some people break your heart. Others break your will. I plan to survive both. Armin felt the air leave his lungs. This wasn't about an affair. This wasn't just betrayal. This was warfare. Silently waged. Carefully plotted. And he had been sleeping beside the enemy. He searched deeper. Digital records. Social media under fake names. Forums where she had posted using aliases. Bits and pieces of a life she had built in parallel. One where she was single. One where he didn't exist. One where she told stories about being trapped in a controlling marriage. His. It didn't matter if it was true. It only mattered that she had evidence. Or made it look like she did. Suddenly, small moment began to make sense. The way she had suggested they separate finances for better tracking. The way she insisted they not mix personal and work emails. The way she always smiled during arguments, never shouting, never reacting, always recording, collecting. He remembered a conversation months ago. She had casually asked him, "If you ever disappeared, what do you think people would say about you?" He had laughed, brushed it off. Now it chilled him to the bone. Armin realized something deeper than infidelity had happened. He hadn't just lost her trust. He had become a character in a narrative she was writing, one that ended with her walking away clean, and him left with nothing but questions and shame. That night, when she returned, she was glowing. She hugged him, asked, "How was your day?" He looked at her, at the woman who had learned to weaponize kindness, who could lie with a smile and mean every word of it. He answered quietly, uneventful. But inside, the storm had begun. Narrator, chilling, deliberate voice. A lie can hurt, but a double life, that shatters you because you realize you weren't just betrayed. You were used, and the person you thought you knew never actually existed. He didn't shout. He didn't break anything. He didn't even ask why. Because sometimes the silence is more than the screams ever could. Armin wasn't angry anymore. He was broken. The house was quiet that night. The kind of quiet that comes before a storm, not after. He had everything. Printouts, screenshots, recordings, proof, undeniable and devastating. He didn't plan a speech, didn't rehearse lines in front of the mirror. He just waited for her to come home, like she always did, with a soft laugh and a bag full of lies. 7:41 p.m. The front door clicked open. He didn't even look up. She walked in, humming to herself, that same melody she always sang while faking happiness. "Armin," she called out, "I brought that tea you like from the store. Finally found it." He stood from the dining table, calm, but not the kind of calm that forgives, the kind that knows. She looked at him and tilted her head. "You okay?" That smile again, small, controlled, perfect. He nodded. "Can we talk?" he asked. "Sure," she replied, casually placing a bag on the counter. "Everything all right?" "Not really." He pulled out the chair. She sat, folding her hands. No panic, no guilt, only curiosity. Armin placed a file on the table. Neatly, no drama. Inside, printouts of the bank statements, the emails, the screenshots, the transcript of the call with Saad, the photos of the secret apartment. Meher glanced down, then back up. That smile didn't move. "Okay," she said simply, like he had just shown her a weather report. He searched her face for fear, regret, a tear, something. There was none, just indifference. "Say something," he whispered. She leaned back, and for the first time in years, she didn't pretend. "You weren't supposed to find it all this soon." That was her first sentence. Not "I'm sorry." Not "it's not what you think." Not even denial. Just strategy. Cold, clean, calculated. He stared at her, his hands clenched on the table. "You were going to leave me." "I still might," she said. "I loved you," Armin said, his voice shaking. "I gave you everything." She tilted her head again, thoughtful, almost bored. "You gave me a life I didn't ask for," she said. Silence. Dead, heavy silence. "I kept this family together," he said. "I stood by you even when I didn't love you anymore," she finished. That smile, still there, like she was watching a show she'd already seen, and knew how it would end. "Why didn't you just leave?" he asked. The question wasn't angry. It was small. "Hello. I wanted to," she said. "But walking away clean takes time. You plan it. You build safety nets. And then you disappear. Smart." "And Saad?" he asked. She shrugged. "A tool. A friend. A fallback. It doesn't matter." He wanted to scream. He wanted to cry. But instead, he asked one last question. "Did you ever love me? Even once?" This time, her smile did change. Not softer, not sadder, just tired. "I loved the version of you I imagined. The one who listened. The one who wasn't always busy being good. But real life? No, that version didn't last long." Armin stood up. Everything in him felt numb. He wasn't her victim. He was her exit strategy. And now that she'd been caught, she wasn't even trying to fix it. She had expected this day, planned for it. And that smile, it wasn't nervous. It was relieved. He looked at her one final time. "Then I guess this is it," he said quietly. She nodded, still calm, still poised, as if she were already living her next life in her mind. Narrator, cold, distant tone. "Some people leave bruises. Others leave memories. But the worst ones, they leave nothing. Just a smile, and the hollow feeling of being used and replaced." Armin didn't slam the door. He didn't cry on the stairs. He just walked out, into a world that no longer made sense. And behind him, she poured herself a cup of tea. like nothing had happened. Sometimes betrayal is just a surface. Beneath the lies, beneath the smile, there's something deeper. Not just an affair, not just escape, but a plan crafted in silence, fueled by something far more dangerous than desire. Revenge. After that night, Armin left the house. Not permanently, not yet, but he needed space. To think, to breathe. She didn't chase after him, didn't call, didn't ask where he went. And that silence, that cold absence of guilt, it haunted him more than anything else. He stayed in a hotel for 2 days. No contact, just his thoughts, the file of evidence, and a growing realization. Something still didn't add up. Yes, she had cheated. Yes, she had stolen. But what kind of person plans an entire second life and collects blackmail on their own husband? What kind of person records phone calls, screenshots messages, and builds a leverage folder like a corporate spy? This wasn't just infidelity. This was intentional. On the 3rd day, he got a call from Cozy, the investigator. "Sir," he said, "I think I know why she did all this. And it's not what you think." Cozy sent him an old legal file, one that Meher had been listed in years ago, before their marriage. Back then, she had sued a former employer for harassment. The case had been dismissed. Why? Lack of evidence, and because the defendant's lawyer was ruthless. A man named Tariq Bashir. That name stopped Armin cold, because Tariq was his uncle, a man Armin hadn't seen in over a decade, a man who had once mentored him and humiliated Meher in court. He remembered now, vaguely, when Meher had first met his extended family. The color had drained from her face when Tariq walked into the room. She'd brushed it off. "Just tired," she'd said. He believed her. He didn't know that the man she was facing across that dinner table was a man who had once destroyed her in court, questioned her integrity, and ruined her reputation. Meher hadn't forgotten. She hadn't forgiven. And she had waited for the right man, the right last name, the right opportunity. And Armin, he had walked right into it, with love in his eyes and blind trust in his heart. The second secret, it wasn't just revenge. It was also escape. Her diary, tucked behind a locked drawer, which the investigator had photographed, told another side. "I wanted to run for years. I just never had the tools. Love is a trap when it becomes expectation. He's kind, he's gentle, but I still feel nothing. I thought I would. I tried, but I can't fake love forever. Maybe I never wanted a marriage. Maybe I just wanted freedom, and this was the only way I could earn it. Was it all fake?" Armin asked himself that again and again. Was it ever real? The late-night talks, the road trips, the way she clung to him when her father passed away. Was that comfort or performance? Was he a safe place or just a means to an end? He returned to the house on the 4th night. She was there, waiting, not anxious, not defensive, just waiting. "You found it, didn't you?" she asked. He nodded. "You knew who my uncle was all along." "Yes," she said, without hesitation. "And you married me to get back at him." She didn't answer, but she didn't deny it either. "Why not just tell me?" he whispered. "You think I would have defended him? I didn't even know." She shrugged. "Because your name opened doors. Because your kindness made it easy. Because revenge feels cleaner when the person doesn't see it coming." "And the money?" he asked. "That was for me," she said softly. "No agenda, just survival. Just a woman finally taking what she needed without asking." That's when he saw it. For the first time, her smile faded. Not into guilt, not into shame, but into sadness. Not for him, for herself. Narrator, reflective tone. Sometimes we fall in love with a person's smile, only to discover, years later, it was never a smile at all. It was a mask. And behind that mask isn't always evil. Sometimes it's pain, grief, a soul stitched together with secrets. Meher didn't love Armin, but maybe she had once wanted to. Maybe she tried, but couldn't, because when someone's heart is full of old wounds, there's no room left for new love. Armin walked out that night, again, but this time not in rage, in release, because now he finally understood. It wasn't just betrayal. It wasn't just revenge. It wasn't even personal. It was a woman who had never truly healed, and he had been the wrong man at the right time. For her escape, what breaks a person is not always a betrayal itself. It's the realization that every word, every memory, every smile was carefully manufactured, not from love, but from calculation. And that's how trust dies. Not suddenly, but silently, piece by piece, until one day, there's nothing left. Armin stood in his old bedroom. Same bed, same curtains, same photo frame on the nightstand. A picture of the two of them on their 3rd anniversary. They were laughing, her head on his shoulder, eyes glowing. Now, he looked at that image and felt nausea. It was all performance. She had smiled like she meant it. She had held him like she loved him. But behind that perfect face, she was planning his replacement. She was stealing from him. She was waiting for the right moment to disappear and leave him empty. He had returned to pack his things. Not to talk. Not to argue. He wasn't angry anymore. He was just numb. Meher didn't say a word when he walked in. She sat on the sofa, scrolling through her phone, as if her entire marriage hadn't just collapsed. Armin walked past her without a glance. He opened the closet, pulled down suitcases, and started folding his shirts. With every item he packed, another piece of memory fell apart. The sweater she had bought for him, the cologne she claimed she loved, the book she had underlined quotes in, pretending they meant something to both of them. It was all fake. She knew what to say, how to say it, when to say it, not to make him happy, but to keep him blind, to keep the illusion alive, until she didn't need it anymore. Halfway through packing, his hand stopped. He sat down on the bed, holding a pair of socks, and suddenly he couldn't breathe. It all hit at once. The memories, the routines, the moments they laughed until they cried, the time she cried in his arms after losing her job, and now he wondered if even her tears were real. How do you survive when your entire life becomes a lie? That's when the shaking started. Not from fear, from heartbreak, silent, invisible, but deep, like something inside him had been cut open and was now leaking trust, dignity, and everything that made him whole. He heard her voice behind him. You don't have to go like this. He didn't turn around. You want me to stay, he said, voice trembling, so you can finish what you started. No, she said calmly, so we don't end in bitterness. He laughed, but it wasn't joy. It was disbelief. You used me. You lied to me. You planned a second life while I made dinner every night thinking we were building a future. She said nothing. He turned to face her. His eyes weren't angry anymore, just broken. You could have told me the truth. You could have just left. But instead, you let me fall in love with a version of you that didn't even exist. She stared at him. No apology, no regret, just that cold, calm look she wore like armor. You believed what you wanted to believe, she said softly. I just let you. Narrator, heavy tone. There are wounds you can see. Cuts, bruises, burns. But the deepest ones are invisible. They don't bleed. They echo. Armin zipped the suitcase. Tears were building now, uninvited. He wasn't just leaving a house. He was leaving a version of himself. The man who believed in fairy tales, in loyalty, in forever. That man had been killed, not by one moment, but by 1,000 hidden choices. As he walked toward the door, she asked one final question. Will you hate me forever? He paused, then said something that came from a place deeper than anger. No, hating you would mean I still care. But I don't trust anyone anymore. And with that, he stepped outside. The door clicked shut behind him. Not loud, not violent, just final. Narrator, soft, haunting tone. Trust isn't lost in one blow. It's worn away by smiles that lie, by love that manipulates, and by people who know exactly how to break you, while still calling it kindness. Armin will recover, maybe, but he will never love the same way again, because the person he trusted most was wearing the mask of someone who never existed. Some goodbyes aren't loud. They don't come with screaming, shattered glass, or dramatic exits. Some goodbyes are quiet, almost too quiet, like the moment before a heart stops beating, because it's not always a person you're walking away from. Sometimes you're walking away from who you used to be. The air was still. No sound, except the creak of the door behind him as it slowly closed. Armin didn't look back. He had already seen enough. That house, the one they decorated together, felt like a museum now. Each room held a memory, and each memory felt fake. The laughter, the plans, the anniversaries, the fights that ended in forgiveness. It was all part of the script she had written, and he had performed, blindly, lovingly. He walked slowly to his car, not because he was unsure, but because he wanted to feel every step, to remember the exact moment when he stopped being Hayes. Not out of hate, not even because of the betrayal, but because he had nothing left to give. Inside the house, she stood by the window, still calm, still emotionless. That same smile, the one that had once made him feel safe. Now, it felt like the most dangerous thing in the world, because it had hidden everything. Narrator, reflective tone. Her smile wasn't love. It was a mask, a carefully constructed illusion, polished, practiced, and powerful. And in the end, it wasn't the affair that broke him, not the secrets, not even the lies. It was that smile, the way it never cracked, even as she watched him fall apart. Armin reached the car, opened the door, then paused. He looked up just once. She was still watching him, not chasing, not weeping, not even blinking, just watching, like a stranger observing the end of someone else's story. He whispered under his breath, "Goodbye, meh." But what he meant was, goodbye to the man who believed you. Goodbye to the version of me that trusted smiles. Goodbye to the dream that died silently in your presence. The engine started. The wheels turned. And just like that, he was gone. No lost words. No closure. Just a clean break from a poisoned past. The road stretched ahead, long, empty, uncertain. But it felt better than the life he had lived under her shadow. Because now he had no illusions. No masks. No lies. Just truth, bitter and painful, but real. Narrator, cold but hopeful tone. Trust dies only once. And when it does, something inside you is reborn. Not softer, not weaker, but wiser, stronger, more cautious. Because the next time someone smiles and says, "I love you," he'll remember the one who said it first, with poison behind her teeth. Later that night, Armin stood in a new apartment. One bedroom, no photos, no history, just silence and a future waiting to be built. Not with someone else. Not yet, but with himself. Because healing begins where pretending ends. He looked out at the city lights, whispering to himself, "I won't forget, but I will forgive myself for believing her." Somewhere far behind him, she probably smiled again, but it didn't matter now, because it would be the last time her smile ever had power over him. Narrator, final closing tone. He didn't leave her because she lied. He left because he finally saw the truth, that not all love is love. Some of it is control, manipulation, survival. And some people, they smile not because they are happy, but because they know they've already won. Until you walk away and take back everything they never truly earned.